DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. Today I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. My guest is going to be the Dr. Steve Ensley. And we're going to talk about toxicology. And specifically, we're going to talk about aflatoxin and how that can have a negative impact on the health of your cattle and other species. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great show.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America. A place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.
When it comes to stopping hornflies, cattlemen love their vet gun. Today they love it even more because Vet Gun now has a 1-2 punch with 2 VetCap insecticides. New AIM-A abamectin can be used in rotation with AIM-L for effective in-season control. Each delivers a unique mode of action to manage hornfly resistance. So start your in-season rotation program with AIM-L and new AIM-A abamectin VetCaps from AgriLabs.
Closed captioning brought to you by Vet Gun with AIM-L and new AIM-A abamectin vet caps, the 1-2 punch against hornfly resistance from AgriLabs.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome to Doc Talk. Today I'm here with Dr. Scott Fritz and Dr. Steve Ensley, and we are here to talk today about aflatoxin. And Dr. Ensley is a professor here at Kansas State, and he's the lead of our toxicology section. Dr. Fritz is a veterinarian here at Kansas State working in toxicology and going to be boarded in toxicology, we hope, in the future. And so having both of them on the show is just great. So start me out. Tell me a little bit about aflatoxin.
So aflatoxin, of all the mycotoxins that we deal with, aflatoxin is the one that FDA is most concerned about. So they have legal limits on aflatoxin in our animal feeds and human feeds because aflatoxin is a carcinogen. So aflatoxin was one of the first mycotoxins that we had much information about. In the 1960s, there was a disease called Turkey X disease that turned out to be aflatoxin in peanuts, and that's where really the whole mycotoxin understanding started with what we knew then. And so we've built on that, looked at a lot. So mycotoxins are always very important and always an issue. We don't want any feed with any mycotoxin in there, but aflatoxin certainly is the one we're really concerned about.
Sure. And so when are we seeing these types of
So aflatoxin likes to have drought conditions, likes hot weather. So anytime we have conditions where it's dry and hot, the aflatoxin, the fungi, Aspergillus, likes to grow in those conditions. So when we have those conditions, then we're especially concerned that we're going to have contamination in the corn or whatever grains that we harvest with aflatoxin.
Okay. And so, is this a worldwide deal, or is this a regional deal? Or
no, it's a worldwide concern. Causes a lot of problems in Africa, anywhere where where we have dry, hot weather and people are consuming grains, small grains, aflatoxin is an issue for the humans as well as the animals that are consuming the mycotoxin.
Awesome. Well, it's one of those that we get the question. So even when we take grain into the co-op, don't they do some sort of screening?
So there is a really good, quick way to look for aflatoxin, and we call it the black light test. So when we get grain, but it's the only mycotoxin this test works for is aflatoxin, not any of the others. But we take the grain, we'll take it into the sample back in the back room where it's dark, look at it with a black light, and if it fluoresces, that means there's a potential for aflatoxin contamination in that grain.
And Scott, you practiced up in Nebraska and in different areas. Obviously, you've seen some issues with aflatoxin, or at least had those discussions with your clients.
Yeah, and generally it's not necessarily specifically aflatoxin. Mycotoxins in general are confusing for both practitioners and farmers to get a handle on. But I guess the important thing would be that there are other mycotoxins out there besides aflatoxin. But yeah, aflatoxin is probably number one on the list as far as a national concern.
Cool. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll start talking about maybe some of the clinical signs and things that people see when we have that increase in aflatoxin. Thanks for watching Doc Talk. We'll be right back. Hey folks, welcome to our Cattle First Minute. I'm Dr. Dan here, and thanks to Beringer Ingelheim Vet Medica for sponsoring this. When we think about vaccination and vaccinating calves in the fall, or vaccinating your cows in the fall, or summer, or spring, it doesn't matter what time of year, we've got to treat vaccines responsibly. Because if you don't, that modified live vaccine becomes a modified dead vaccine. We want to make sure we keep it out of the sunlight. We want to make sure that we keep it cool. We want to make sure that you don't mix up more vaccine that you're going to utilize than what you would utilize in an hour. And when you do, make sure you put it in that cooler that keeps it dark and keeps it cool. All of these things, understanding that the syringes have to be clean so that these products work well. Putting a vaccine that is not efficacious into an animal means you vaccinate the animal, but you don't immunize the animal. And understanding that there's a difference between immunization and vaccination is important for Cattle First.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business has started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, and we're glad to answer and work with you.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Scott Fritz and Dr. Steve Ensley. We're all at Kansas State University in the College of Veterinary Medicine, where Dr. Ensley leads our toxicology section and Dr. Fritz is part of that toxicology section. and we're talking about mycotoxins, aflatoxin, and so when we have a drought or something to that nature, we need to be looking at it in our small grains, and there are some tolerances set forward, right?
Correct. So FDA has some legal limits on what we can actually feed in animal feeds, and so once we test the feed, if we suspect aflatoxin is there, so this is the time of year when we're doing our harvesting. This is when we do the most screening, trying to look for aflatoxin. So there are different levels that they will accept. One of the most sensitive species, or a species that we look at for aflatoxin, if it is an issue, is in dairy cattle, because dairy cattle consume aflatoxin, and it gets into the milk as aflatoxin M1, and M1 is a carcinogen that FDA does not tolerate at all, hardly. So 5 parts per billion is the amount that we can feed. So if dairy cattle consume, if you're harvesting grain now and you don't check, there's always the potential that we'll get a milk contamination issue that really gives us a heads up that, okay, we've got aflatoxin in our grains that we're harvesting for 2019, and we need to look at all the other production classes and species that are going to be consuming this grain, because it's the potential for aflatoxin is there.
When we're looking at our cow herds and our feeder calves and different things to that, what are some of the things that we would be controlling or be looking for that could possibly cause issues with aflatoxin in our
So animals? the target for aflatoxin, so I mentioned it is a carcinogen, so at any concentration there's a potential to cause cancer, mainly an issue in humans. We don't see much cancer really cause problems in animals, but if humans consume a diet with aflatoxin or animal tissues that have been contaminated, that can be an issue. But for animals, the target organ that we see the biggest issue with is the liver. So if we see aflatoxin in diets that are high enough to cause health problems in animals, we'll look at liver enzymes to see if the aflatoxin is actually high enough to be a production problem or health problem for cattle and pigs, the production animals that we're looking at.
What would be some specific things that if I walked out there and I was going to say, hey, this could be aflatoxin or mycotoxin, what are some things that people should look out for? So
a lot of times it can be difficult to tell, because it can be wide range of clinical signs. Sometimes on feedlot animals, we're looking at rate of gain, feed efficiency all the time. So anything that will affect that aflatoxin could be considered a potential problem. So one of the things, if feed efficiency, rate of gain is affected, that we want to look at is we'll look at aflatoxin in the feed that the animals are consuming to see if that's what the issue is. We also have a way to look at aflatoxin in a liver sample. If an animal dies and we want to know it's related to aflatoxin, we can look for another aflatoxin metabolite in liver similar to the one we look at in milk to see if that's what the issue was.
Right. And so what about the old adage on prolapses?
So anytime we're looking at adverse health, aflatoxin, because it's always a potential issue, would be included in any adverse health things we look at. And the one thing I want to stress about aflatoxin is when we're looking at concentrations to cause disease in animals, we're looking at parts per billion. So all the other mycotoxins we look at are parts per million, so 1,000 times lower for aflatoxin will cause adverse health and a wide range of issues in animals that we deal with.
Awesome. Well, folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Dr. Fritz and Dr. Ensley here on aflatoxin. You're watching Doc Talk. Thanks for joining us.
When you're in the cattle business, no matter how much it's a business, it still starts with cattle. It's this basic notion that sits at the core of how we approach things at Boehringer Ingelheim. We understand when you put the cattle first, it just naturally leads to doing the right things. If you want to do well in this business, you start by doing right. Take care of the cattle, and they'll take care of you.
When it comes to stopping hornflies, cattlemen love their vet gun. Today they love it even more because VetGun now has a 1-2 punch with 2 VetCap insecticides. New AIM-A abamectin can be used in rotation with AIM-L for effective in-season control. Each delivers a unique mode of action to manage hornfly resistance. So start your in-season rotation program with AIM-L and new AIM-A abamectin vet caps from AgriLabs.
Kansas Farm Bureau has served farm families in rural Kansas for more than 100 years. We're pleased to offer new health care coverage choices for Kansans in 2020 through Kansas Farm Bureau Health Plans. No matter what stage of life you're in, we'll have options that fit your lifestyle. Plus, our network of providers is one of the largest available throughout the state of Kansas and beyond. For more information, including the different plans available, or to get a quote, visit kfbhealthplans.com.
Kim Mannering with Hardy Insurance. Today we will talk about employee safety and work comp coverage. On your farm, do you ask your friends to come help? Are they considered employees or neighbors helping neighbors? Did you know that you can be held responsible just as if it's a work comp accident? Give me a call, we can discuss. 316-945-6733.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. I'm here with Steve Ensley and Scott Fritz. They're both veterinarians and toxicologists here at Kansas State University. And if you don't know it, you should know it, that we have probably the best capabilities in toxicology of anywhere in the world for livestock. And these are the two people that are really leading the charge for us here at Kansas State University. So Tox Lab is open, ready to roll. So when we talked about this, when we do have an aflatoxin issue, we can. It doesn't take much to create an issue, does it?
No, and like Dr. Ensley talked about, we're measuring in parts per billion, and so that's, you're looking at a couple kernels in a trailer load of corn can make it a positive sample, and we can start to measure it then, and you can flirt with the FDA threshold with that. So if you do have a positive load and you're still below the minimum level that the FDA says, at the time you're going to want to blend that feed, and I don't want to use the word dilute, but just make sure that you're blending that and trying to stay below the threshold as best you can.
It's awesome, and so obviously it's part of a TMR, the corn, when it's coming into a feed yard or into a hog operation, things of that nature. So when they do the FDA levels for feeding it, is it on the total ration or is it on the
it is
grain?
Based on the TMR.
Okay.
So there's some mycotoxin inclusion rates they're looking at. It can only be, say, 5% of the diet or 10% of the diet. But aflatoxin, we're looking at the TMR, the total ration that animal receives cannot exceed the guidelines that FDA has set.
And then that goes back to what you're talking about, that if I have a certain level in my corn, my inclusion rate may be dictated on.
Yeah, it's going to adjust how much of that corn that you could put in the TMR, and you might need to, find some different alternatives.
Might be multiple sources of corn that you would be putting into that TMR. So it's not really the old adage of just blending the corn, aflatoxin corn with non-aflatoxin corn, to get a lower level. It's actually, we have different sources, they get moved into the TMR, and that's perfectly good way to manage that. What would be some of the things we'd be thinking about? So if I'm a producer out there today, what would be a beef producer? What would be my number one concern of mycotoxins on the health of my cattle?
So aflatoxin is a big problem. Fumonisin is one that we've actually seen for the last 3 or 4 years. That's been very high levels, especially in Kansas. The different species are affected. So the horse is the most sensitive, so we actually have lost horses due to fumonisin, pigs due to fumonisin, aflatoxin, probably more production losses, not any acute death with that. Vomitoxin is one we see that causes a lot of GI issues. Zearalenone is one that we see estrogenic effects with. So, and the bottom line with mycotoxins, there's a lot more we don't know than what we do know, and the ones we measure are really just a handful of the ones that we know that are out there causing problems. But we feel like we've got good methods here, especially at Kansas State, where we can look at those and try to make that determination.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Dr. Ensley and Dr. Fritz will wrap us up on aflatoxins and mycotoxins. You're watching Doc Talk, and we're sure glad you joined us.
You don't have to be a farmer or rancher to become a Kansas Farm Bureau member. Anyone can join. As a member, you'll get discounts on things like hotels and entertainment, health and wellness services, cell phone plans, and more. You'll also strengthen the lives of your fellow Kansans and help build strong, prosperous communities through agriculture advocacy and education. Join us today. Visit kfb.org/join to learn more.
When it comes to stopping horn flies, cattlemen love their vet gun. Today they love it even more because Vet Gun now has a 1-2 punch with 2 VetCap insecticides. New AIM-A abamectin can be used in rotation with AIM-L for effective in-season control. Each delivers a unique mode of action to manage hornfly resistance. So start your in-season rotation program with AIM-L and new AIM-A abamectin VetCaps from AgriLabs.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Scott Fritz and Dr. Steve Ensley. We're at Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine talking about mycotoxins, and one of the things we didn't talk about, but everybody thinks is just add a binder, right, and that'll grab all those mycotoxins and we won't have any problems. But recently,
2 weeks ago, there was a big review article published. The properties that make them good at binding toxins, which they do a good job. It also makes them good at binding things that we need, like trace minerals and even feed grade antibiotics that people don't think about. Can really affect therapy outcomes with feed grade antimicrobials, and then might cause some with residue issues. It can either inhibit or potentiate that situation.
Yeah, it's not something that we tend to not think about the unintended consequences of that they always told me for every complex problem there's a simple solution, and it's wrong. and
right.
And so just throwing a mycotoxin binder in there is not the exact answer. So as producers, and again when we're thinking about this, if they want to send samples in to y'all, what's the best way to do that?
I would say the best way is to work through your veterinarian first off, and they'll have the submission forms and they'll know how to fill them out. They'll know where to send them. And probably sampling is a big part, because we're talking such small amounts that it's not going to be very well distributed in the feed. Sometimes you'll have hot spots in there. And so I would urge people to work with a veterinarian or a feed rep that knows how to do some of that random sampling in a big volume of sample, like a trailer load.
Awesome. Dr. Ensley, sampling, different things.
So sampling is key. I mean, that is the number one issue. So we need a randomized sample, because what we do in the lab is very straightforward, but a getting the right sample from the field in all field cases of feed toxicology is the key to how good of a job we can do telling you what kind of risk you have with that feed.
Well, I sure appreciate you guys taking time out. It's always fun to talk toxicology.
It always is.
It's my favorite. I mean, it's the best cases, but it's doom and gloom and then rays of light. So
CSI for animals.
That's right. Well, I appreciate what y'all do for our industry and for Kansas State. And thank you for watching DocTalk. Remember, if you want to know more about what we do on DocTalk, you can find us at www.doctalktv.com. Always work with your local veterinarian. From Dr. Ensley and Dr. Fritz and myself, I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by VetGun with Amel and new AMA Abamectin Vet Caps, the 1-2 punch against hornfly resistance. From AgriLabs.
For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com.
DocTalk was brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses in rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. About a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery, and so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, after 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months. And I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously. So I'm tickled to death with the results, and I'd recommend this process to anyone.